What is going on, guys? I'm Pete. Welcome to Retro Game Addict. In today's video, I'm going to be replacing the screen lens on the original Game Boy. I have two here from my personal collection that I'm going to be working on today. Now, this is probably the simplest and most straightforward Game Boy mod out there. So with all that out of the way, let's get into it. Alright, so before we get started, here are the two Game Boys we are going to be working on today. The first is a Play It Loud black model that I've had for like 15 years or so now. It appears to have the original screen cover, but you can kind of see down there adjacent to the Game Boy logo and then up towards the top, it's kind of like peeling away, or I guess like delaminating from maybe the back. And this thing is just totally scratched up. There's a pretty deep scratch here and it's just scuffed and scratched throughout. So I think this one is a good candidate. And then the second one we have here is a Play It Loud as well. This is a clear model, and I've also had this one for a really long time. I'm going to say probably close to 20 plus years. And ever since I had it under my ownership, it had a grayed out screen that was similar to the original DMG. It originally looked gray like this one, and as you can see, this one has lost all of its gray coloring over time, and it's pretty scratched up as well. You can kind of see there's just like little minor scratches and scuffs throughout. Regardless, this Play It Loud model shouldn't have this gray screen. It was definitely outfitted with that black one that was on the other models. So I think this one is a pretty good candidate as well, just to bring it back to its original state. Now that we have that little introduction out of the way, let's move on to the stuff that you'll need for this project. Alright, so here is all the stuff that you're going to need in no particular order. First up, we're going to use a heat gun, or in some cases you can also use a hair dryer. Now this is to heat up the adhesive of the old screen cover that we're removing. You're also going to need a duster, a canned duster, or just a battery powered one like this will work wonders just to clean up all the dust in your work area. A plastic scraper to scrape up any leftover adhesive on the Game Boy. An old toothbrush just to get into the crevices and just make sure everything's clean. Of course, you're going to need your replacement screens. These are super high quality. You can see they have 3M adhesive on the back, and they seem to match up pretty well with the OEM specs, so I'm pretty happy with those. So you're going to need an old suction cup to put on the screen that we're removing. Now, combined with the heat of the heat gun or the hair dryer and the old adhesive on these Game Boys, you're really not going to need too much force, but the suction cup will make your life a ton easier, trust me. And last up, isopropyl alcohol and some cotton swabs. Now that we got that all out of the way, let's move on to the first Game Boy. I'm going to start with the clear Play It Loud. So I have my heat gun. I'm going to turn it on to the lowest setting, and I'm going to direct it at the Game Boy screen a couple of inches away for not too long. We don't want to heat up the interior components of this too much as we're not disassembling the Game Boy. So here goes nothing. All right, that seems to be heated up pretty good. We'll stick that suction cup on, and then we'll gently try to pull it off. And some are going to be more stubborn than others, and this one definitely seems to be pretty stubborn. So let's heat it up a second time. You might have to work at this a few times. All right, suction cup on. Let's try it again. There it is. We got it. So it might be a little hard to tell from the video, but there is a good amount of adhesive still left on here. So I'm going to apply some isopropyl alcohol to those cotton swabs and soak this stuff up as best as I can, and use my plastic scraper to get any sort of residuals off of here. So let's go. I'm going to do my best not to touch the screen on here. I definitely want to avoid that at all costs. And just work slowly and methodically. It might take a little while. This is 30-year-old adhesive after all. Okay, so that adhesive is pretty stubborn, so I'm going to break out the big guns here and try some Goo Gone on a cotton swab. And we'll just apply it to all that adhesive and then let it sit in for a little while and work its magic. So I have some adhesive here that's basically like petrified on, so I'm taking a very small flathead screwdriver and just gently scraping it up, just kind of agitating it, and I'll do that all around and then take some more Glue Gone and isopropyl alcohol and see if I can work the rest of it out. Okay, so that scraping technique actually did work pretty well. I'm going to make one more pass around with the flathead screwdriver and see if that makes any more of a difference. Alright, so I think we're in pretty good shape here. You can see that I cleaned up the edges pretty well. There's like little to no adhesive left, and any residual Goo Gone that was still on there I wiped off with isopropyl alcohol, so we should be good to go. I think we're ready to bust the new screen out. So before we peel that adhesive backing off, I'm just going to stick it in there to make sure it fits. Everything seems to line up pretty well, so I'm going to go for it. And before we move along, I'm going to hit this one more time with that duster. And we're going to peel the backing off here, starting with this little tab at the top and just pulling straight down. Alright, so I probably should have peeled this middle part off first, but I'm going to be really careful and just peel it off real quick. So after we peeled all that off, there still is like a little piece of backing here. Okay, so let's try a spudger. Alright, I think we got it. Alright, we'll peel that backing off. Okay, here we go. And then one more time with the duster for good measure. Alright, moment of truth. Let's just drop it in there. And wow, I have to say that actually looks amazing. That glass screen really does make this pop. And we'll just compare it with the old one real quick. You can see it's basically just night and day here. Obviously there's no scratches on the screen. I'm gonna do my best to keep it as nice as I can. Okay, so that is looking amazing. So I'm gonna move on to the black Play It Loud and use the lessons that I learned during the first run here. So let's do it. All right, so black Play It Loud here. Let's hit it with that heat gun and suction cup. Wow, that came right off. So just like the clear one here, you can see that there's a lot of residue left over, so we are going to hit it with the isopropyl alcohol and some Goo Gone and do our best just to work all of that out of there. Just like the first time too, I'm going to take that little flathead screwdriver and just gently scrape off as much of the tough adhesive as I can. Alright, so that is looking pretty good. As you can see, it's pretty scratched up on the sides, but I did the best that I could getting all of that adhesive off. It doesn't really matter about the scratches because it's all going to be underneath that cover anyway. So let's get started with removing this from the package. I did learn from my mistake last time. I'm going to peel off the center section of this 3M tape before I move on to the outer section. Let's peel the clear cover off, set it aside, and then that centermost section, I'm just going to take a spudger and just try to pry up one of those corners. Maybe I'll just switch to the flathead screwdriver. Just very gently get one of those corners. And then for that little white trim in there, I'm just gonna see, maybe I'll take the spudger and just try to pry it up. Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna peel off that outer edge so I can better access that white piece of paper. So let's do it. All right. There we go. And then as like last time, I'm going to hit the Game Boy one more time with this duster before I put the screen on. All right, here we go. Man, that looks so good. I can't get over how good these glass screens look. You can see them both side by side, zero scratches, super clear, and I think I did a pretty good job of mitigating all the dust. I don't really see anything underneath there. And then just a little quick comparison with the original screen versus the replacement. And then as you can see, it is night and day between the old ones too. That old one was super scratched up and then getting discolored in those two places that I pointed out earlier. But that new screen, man, that looks so good. Seriously, I can't get over that. There it is, guys. That was the screen lens replacement on two of my original Nintendo Game Boys. Like I said before, this is probably the simplest and most straightforward Game Boy mod out there. So if you want to dip your toes into the modding scene or just freshen up your old Game Boy, this is the way to go. Hopefully you found this video useful, and if you did, please be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. I love hearing from you guys. As always, thank you all so much for checking out Retro Game Attic. I really do appreciate you all. Have an awesome day, and I'll see you on the next one.